Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of cold email marketing.
Ooh, cold email.
Specifically, how to make sure your emails actually reach people's inboxes.
Yeah.
Instead of getting lost in the spam folder black hole,
Right.
we're going to be looking at a couple of YouTube videos from Charles Cormier,
Okay.
CEO of a cold email marketing agency
Interesting.
and host of the CEO Wisdom podcast.
So he's like
Yeah.
using this himself.
He seems to be practicing what he preaches.
Yeah,
So let's see what he has to say.
for sure.
From what I've seen, his videos provide a pretty insightful look into his cold email strategies,
Yeah.
particularly his emphasis on using podcast outreach.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting approach,
Yeah, for sure.
and it seems like he had a bit of a deliverability wake-up call after a vacation.
Oh, what happened?
He came back to a bunch of "you're in my spam folder" replies
Oh, no.
and realized he'd been pushing the boundaries a bit too far.
I see.
It's a common trap to fall into.
Yeah.
You're constantly trying to improve your results.
Right.
You test new tactics,
You got to experiment.
but sometimes those experiments can backfire.
Sometimes you go too far and you
Yeah.
don't even realize it.
The real trick is finding that sweet spot between innovation and maintaining good standing with email providers.
Yeah, it's like a tightrope walk almost.
Yeah, he was talking about using long AI-written emails with tons of links.
Oh, yeah. That's gonna...
Probably a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's gonna set off some alarms for sure.
Absolutely. AI is a powerful tool,
For sure.
but it needs a human touch.
It does.
And when it comes to links, it's all about context and relevance.
Right.
Too many links, especially if they're not directly related to the email's purpose,
Yeah.
can definitely trigger spam filters.
Oh, for sure.
So how did he course correct?
Well, how'd he fix it?
Well, he went back to basics.
Okay.
He ditched unverified contacts from his database.
Okay. Makes sense. Get rid of the dead weight.
Cleaned up his email signature by removing any lingering website links.
All right. Ooh.
And started taking a softer approach with the links in his emails.
Okay, how so?
Instead of just dropping a link, he'd ask something like, "Can I send you the link?"
Oh, that's interesting.
Almost like he's asking permission.
Yeah, like you're adding a little bit of courtesy there.
Exactly. It's a subtle shift, but it makes a big difference.
I like that.
Instead of bombarding people with information, you're framing it as a value exchange.
Okay.
You're acknowledging your time and offering something potentially helpful, which makes them more likely to engage.
Right. You're not just like taking. You're offering something first.
It's interesting that he relies so heavily on Apollo for managing his cold email campaigns.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Apollo is a popular platform that provides contact information
Okay.
and helps you manage your campaign.
So it's like a CRM kind of?
Yeah, and it's not just for sending cold emails. You can also use it to build targeted lists for outreach and track your campaign performance.
So pretty much the whole shebang.
It sounds like he's all in on Apollo.
Okay.
He even offers a service where he sets up entire Apollo accounts for clients.
Wow. So he's like a consultant
Yeah,
for this specific tool.
it makes sense for someone new to cold email.
Yeah.
A platform like Apollo can seem overwhelming.
I bet there's a lot to it.
There's a lot of features,
Right.
and knowing how to use them effectively is key.
Yeah.
By offering this service, he's essentially packaging his expertise and making it accessible to others.
Right. So you don't have to go through that whole learning curve yourself.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
Charles seems to have found a niche with podcast invitation campaigns.
Podcast invitations.
He even uses them to warm up new email accounts,
Oh, that's interesting.
claiming that almost no one flags these invitations as spam.
I guess that makes sense because it's not really like a hard sell or anything.
That's a clever strategy. Think about it. Podcast invites frame the email as a potential collaboration rather than a sales pitch.
Right. It's more like partnership.
You're essentially reaching out to someone and saying, "Hey, I think you'd be a great guest on my podcast."
Yeah.
It's a way to leverage the growing popularity of podcasts
Okay.
while positioning yourself as someone who wants to contribute to the space.
So you're building your credibility at the same time.
It's a smart way to make a connection without being overtly salesy.
For sure.
And speaking of targeting,
Okay.
he also recommends avoiding companies with 1,000 plus employees.
Oh, really? Why is that?
He says they have tougher spam filters.
Ah, that makes sense. They've got more
Exactly.
resources to dedicate to that kind of thing.
That's a good point. Larger companies often have more robust security measures in place,
Right.
which makes it harder for your emails to get through.
Yeah.
So focusing on smaller businesses initially can be a good way to increase your deliverability rates.
I see. So it's like you're picking your battles a little bit.
It's almost like picking your battles.
Right.
Start with the lower hanging fruit.
Right. Start small and then
work your way up.
work your way up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding your target audience.
Yeah.
And tailoring your approach accordingly.
Right.
And it's not just about demographics.
Okay.
It's also about understanding their tech setup and what kind of filters they might have in place.
Makes sense.
Speaking of tech setup, he went as far as switching to a dedicated IP address
A dedicated IP address.
to avoid being blacklisted by others sharing the same IP.
Oh, wow. That seems pretty hardcore.
That seems pretty extreme.
Yeah.
It might seem like overkill, but it underscores his commitment to deliverability.
Yeah.
Think of it this way, when you share an IP address with others,
Okay.
you're essentially sharing a reputation.
Ah, I see.
If someone on that shared IP is sending spam,
Right.
it can negatively impact your deliverability,
Even if you're not.
even if your emails are legitimate.
Yeah, you're guilty by association.
So by getting a dedicated IP address, he's essentially starting with a clean slate.
Yeah, so you're not being judged by the actions of others.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's like building your email reputation from scratch.
Right.
You're not being judged by the actions of others,
Right.
which gives you more control over how your emails are perceived by email providers.
That makes sense.
And he's not stopping there.
Oh, there's more.
He's also constantly A/B testing different email services like SendGrid and Mailgun,
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those.
which he admitted has cost him a pretty penny.
I bet.
It's a testament to his dedication.
Yeah, he's really...
Even with all his experience, he's still experimenting and refining his approach.
So it's a constant.
It's a reminder that the world of cold email is constantly evolving,
Yeah.
and what works today might not work tomorrow.
Right.
Continuous testing and optimization are crucial.
Crucial. It's like a moving target almost.
So what does this tell us about the state of cold email marketing in general?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Well, according to Charles, it's still the most effective channel for customer acquisition, even more so than paid advertising.
Really?
It's more cost effective and allows you to reach a larger audience.
interesting.
But there's a catch.
Oh, I bet there is.
I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
You need to know what you're doing.
Yeah, you can't just like wing it.
Exactly. You can't just throw together a generic email
Right.
and expect it to magically land in someone's inbox
Yeah.
and convert them into a customer.
Nope.
There's a science to it, and that's where Charles positions his services.
So he's like the expert that you go to.
He's basically saying,
No.
look, this is a complex and constantly changing landscape,
Yeah.
but I've figured it out. Let me handle it for you.
Makes sense.
It's a compelling value proposition,
Yeah.
especially for businesses that don't have the time or resources
Right.
to dedicate to mastering cold email themselves.
Right.
They're essentially outsourcing that expertise.
So if someone is listening to this trying to understand how they can improve their cold email deliverability,
Yeah. What are the key takeaways so far?
Charles's story highlights that cold email is a constantly evolving challenge.
Okay.
What worked for him a year ago might not work today,
Right.
but he's found success by focusing on building relationships,
Cool.
providing genuine value, and understanding the technical aspects of deliverability.
So the combination of strategy and like the human touch.
He's not just sending random emails into the void.
Right.
He's strategically targeting his audience,
Okay.
crafting compelling messages and making sure those messages actually reach their intended recipients.
So it's a holistic approach.
It's a holistic approach that combines both the art and science of cold email marketing.
I like that.
So it's not just about avoiding the spam folder, it's about making a genuine connection.
Think about building those relationships.
Exactly. And that brings us to a crucial question for you, the listener.
Ooh, cliffhanger.
Beyond the technical tactics, what can you offer in your cold emails that makes them genuinely valuable and less likely to be perceived as spam? That's a good question.
We'll explore this further after a quick break.
Ooh, can't wait. Yeah, that is a really good question.
It reminds me of something Charles mentioned about how he uses podcast invites to warm up new email accounts.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, you'd think they'd be more strict with new accounts.
You'd think a brand new account would be extra cautious. It's a clever tactic that plays on the nature of podcasting itself.
I see.
When you invite someone to be on your podcast, you're essentially proposing a collaboration.
Right. You're reaching out.
It's a value exchange, not a hard sell.
You're not immediately asking for something.
So it shifts the perception from spammer to potential partner.
Yeah, you're coming from a different angle.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And because podcasting is built on this idea of sharing and connecting,
Right.
people are less likely to view these invitations as intrusive or unwanted.
Yeah, it's seen as more of a positive thing.
It's almost like you're entering their inbox through a side door,
Oh, I like that.
not the main entrance where all the salespeople are crowding.
Yeah, you're not just another email in the pile.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And it highlights the importance of understanding the psychology behind email deliverability.
Right.
It's not just about technical tricks. It's about building trust and rapport.
It's about building a relationship.
So how can someone who's not in the podcasting world apply this principle?
So how can you do that without a podcast?
It's all about finding ways to offer genuine value up front.
Right. Give them something useful.
Think about the problems your target audience is facing.
Okay.
How can you address those problems in your initial email?
So you're almost like giving them free advice.
Instead of leading with a sales pitch, you're offering a solution or insight that's relevant to their needs.
Right. You're showing them that you understand their problems.
Precisely, you're demonstrating your expertise
Okay.
and establishing yourself as a resource, not just someone trying to sell them something.
So you're building that credibility.
It's like the difference between showing up at a party empty-handed
I like where this is going.
versus bringing a delicious dish everyone can enjoy.
Hey, yeah, you're the popular guest.
You're instantly more welcome.
Exactly.
I love that analogy.
That too.
It perfectly captures the spirit of what we're talking about.
For sure.
And it's not just about the content of your email.
Okay.
It's also about the way you present yourself.
So the tone and the style.
Charles mentioned that he ditched those long AI-generated emails.
Oh, yeah.
I guess even if the AI is good, it can still lack that human touch.
It can sound a little robotic sometimes.
AI can be a fantastic tool for brainstorming or generating initial drafts.
Okay.
But you always need a human eye to refine the language,
Yeah.
add personality, and ensure it aligns with your brand voice.
Right. You want it to sound authentic.
So it's not about replacing human creativity, it's about augmenting it.
It's like a tool to help you.
Think of AI as your brainstorming partner, not your ghostwriter.
I like that.
That's a good way to put it. Now, Charles also talked about testing different email services and even investing in a dedicated IP address.
Yeah, that's a big step.
That seems like a pretty big commitment, especially for someone just starting out.
Can be expensive.
It definitely requires resources, but it speaks to the importance of infrastructure in cold email deliverability.
So it's not just about the emails themselves.
Think of your email setup as the foundation of your house.
All right.
If the foundation is weak, the whole structure is at risk.
You need a solid base.
So even if you have the most amazing email copy in the world, it won't matter if it never reaches the inbox.
Right. It's like having a Ferrari but no gas in the tank.
Exactly. And that's why it's important to understand the factors that can impact your deliverability.
So what are some of those factors?
Like having a shared IP address that's been blacklisted because of someone else's spammy behavior.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
That's one factor.
Hmm.
Others include things like your email sender reputation,
Mhm.
the quality of your email list,
Okay.
and even the content of your emails themselves.
So it's a lot to keep in mind.
So it's not just about sending emails, it's about building a system that supports successful delivery.
You need a whole strategy.
Precisely, and that's where tools like Apollo and dedicated email services come in.
Right.
They provide the infrastructure and features you need to manage your campaigns effectively
Okay.
and ensure your emails reach their intended recipients.
So they take care of the technical side of things.
It sounds like there's a lot to consider,
It does.
but if Charles is right, and cold email is still the most effective way to acquire customers, then it's worth investing the time and effort to get it right.
It sounds like it's a worthwhile investment.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not just about getting your emails delivered.
Oh.
It's about building relationships that lead to long-term success.
So it's about more than just making a sale.
So how do you translate those delivered emails into actual customers?
That's the million-dollar question.
That's where the art of persuasion comes in.
Okay.
It's about crafting emails that are not only engaging, but also inspire action.
So how do you do that?
So what are some key principles to keep in mind when crafting those persuasive cold emails?
So what's the secret sauce?
Well, first and foremost, you need to understand your audience and their pain points.
Right, know your customer.
What are their challenges? What are their aspirations?
What keeps them up at night?
It's like doing your homework before going on a first date.
Oh, I like that.
You want to know what they're interested in so you can have a good conversation?
You want to make a good impression.
That's a great way to think about it.
Think.
The more you understand your audience, the better you can tailor your message to resonate with them.
So it's all about personalization.
And once you've captured their attention, how do you keep them engaged?
So how do you keep them reading?
Storytelling is a powerful tool.
Oh yeah, stories are always engaging.
Instead of just listing features and benefits, weave a narrative that connects with your audience on an emotional level.